Mr. Speaker. It's an honour to second the Loyal Address, and I'm proud that the Stroud constituency is playing its part in history, given that this is the first state opening of His Majesty the King. The late Queen was an inspiration for everyone across this great nation, and for members of this House. She reminded us that despite the melodrama of politics, we are all here to serve the public. The King is already following in his mother's footsteps and making us all proud. Although when I told my non-political family that I was going to be talking about the King's speech, the response I got back was, "Oh, great, that's a really good film." Talking about hard acts to follow, the Right Honourable Member for Scarborough and Whitby had been doing a fair few lols then. I know exactly the areas that he's talking about, and I think he's definitely landed that promotion with that speech in his final furlong. So we've got many connections which I'll touch on today, but his Scarborough FC is actually playing Stroud's Forest Green Rovers in the FA Cup next week, so we've got another rumble to come as well. So, listen, I know the Right Honourable Member will be missed when he gets his pipe and slippers out to retire next year, but his lovely new grandchildren are going to be keeping him very busy. So I actually went to school in the Right Honourable Member's constituency, and if I could tell a younger me in Scarborough wearing Spice Girl platforms, Adidas tracky bottoms and a second-hand Umbro jumper, it was a very strong look, and I am very grateful that camera phones were not allowed. But if I could tell that young fashionista that I would have the privilege of representing the most beautiful constituency of Stroud, speaking ahead of the Prime Minister after being in the same room as the King and the Queen, I think the young me would have thought I'd have lost the plot. So what did the Conservative Party do for a free school meal kid who left home at 15 and did not go to uni? They gave her the seat at the most famous palace in the world, led by the son of a pharmacist, who is also leading the most diverse cabinet that we have ever known. And so the public service bit of this job motivates me, but it's not what hits the headlines. I am often asked, how do you survive with everybody backstabbing, doing their own thing and out to get each other? And I just smile and say, I don't hang around with the Labour Party. I love you all, really. And to be honest, the PLP has absolutely nothing on the Stroud Labour Party, who have resigned and fallen out with each other. But no, what I actually say is that to survive in this place, you have to find some friends and then fully expect them to push you in the Thames in the run-up to a reshuffle. You also get new friends for very short periods of time come select committee elections. And I sort of miss the daily messages from the Right Honourable Member for Birmingham Hodge Hill. His text messages are less famous than his scary handwritten notes about the economy, but they are still persistent. Back to navigating a workplace that is mad as a box of frogs. Early on, I came up with Operation Green Benches, whereby I shunned history books and Hansard, and I researched parliamentary sketches instead, because I love them. Quentin Letts once wrote that up here, where I am now, is the naughty corner. So that sorted out where I was going to sit, and it sounded fun, and he was right. I then realised that identifying the loudest colleagues to sit with and effectively hide behind could be absolutely crucial to avoiding the wrath of the Speaker. The Right Honourable Member for Elmet and Rothwell seemed to fit this bill. He was described as being expansively waistcoated and having lungs like bagpipes, which is perfect. And he's not in his place, he's watching at home in the telly box, but no doubt is wearing a waistcoat. The Honourable Member for North Dorset and the Right Honourable Member for South Swindon are often depicted as noisy and boisterous, and those two appear to come free with bagpipe lungs in a creative Bog-Off style deal that probably should be banned. But, Mr. Speaker, this strategy has served me well, and it's given me a slightly dysfunctional but always hilarious and caring Chamber family who I love dearly. The other 5 Gloucestershire MPs are also guiding lights, not least the Right Honourable Member for the Forest of Dean, who taught me that consistent rebelling does not hinder one's career. Okay, Chief Whip, I'm not going to follow that way. Now, my kids also come to work with me, so they support her in their own chaotic way. Gigi, age 3, dressed as a witch on Halloween recently, she merrily skipped up some steps of one house and turned to me and said loudly, "Mummy, this is just like canvassing." And then the door opened and she went, "Trick or treat." And I said, well, I blame those CCHQ canvassing scripts. It was an absolute disaster. And there's a myriad of female colleagues that naturally support each other, and that's on both sides of the House. And I especially congratulate the Honourable Member for Brecon and Radnorshire on her wedding. It's absolutely radiant, and I wish her husband and her a long and happy life together. Mr. Speaker, I'm chuffed to be the first MP from Stroud to be asked to second the King's Speech. Stroud, the Valleys and Vale is gorgeous. Please visit. We have the quirky bit of the Cotswolds with a creative, innovative and industrial spirit throughout. People rightly expect a lot of their public servants in our neck of the woods, and I mainly sit in the House of Commons library, as others know, dealing with endless amounts of casework and correspondence. I'm having some successes. I'm steadily chipping away at 20-year-old problems like Tricorn House, accessibility at Stroud Station, and newer challenges like Rush Skate Park and Stroud Maternity's postnatal beds. But people take the mick out of me sitting in the library, but I really like it. It is also never dull. The Honourable Member for Totnes, another Denzian of the library, excitedly texted me one day and said, "Come see my tortoise." Now, I've heard about these public school boys and how they like to give nicknames to things. So it was not without fear and trepidation that I came into his bit of the library to see his tortoise. But happily, Mr. Speaker, it was actually your tortoise that I got to see. He was eating merrily on the terrace. And may I say that your decision to add giant cats and other creatures to this already odd place is very welcome. I listened carefully to what His Majesty the King had to say earlier. It is customary to be jolly in seconding a speech, but we all know that these are difficult times. To hear that the government's focus is on security challenges, both domestic and international, was extremely important. Thereafter, I can get behind all actions to increase economic growth and help our constituents with day-to-day pressures or injustices. By way of an example, Stroud constituents should not be ripped off by rogue property management companies. I commend the campaigning of local people and the honourable members, North East Bedfordshire and Westminster, to get leasehold reform and protections for homeowners on the agenda. The King's comments about putting people in control of their futures and a focus on town regeneration give me hope for High Street's businesses in fantastic areas like Berkeley and Stroud Town. And with the PM gripping AI and new technology, we're poised and ready to fly with innovation on renewables, hydrogen ice, and in nuclear and many other STEM fields. The government's long-term NHS workforce programmes has to get liftoff if we're to help Stroud maternity midwives. I've long campaigned for more apprentices as well, so let's get rid of all barriers in further education. My excellent friend and constituency neighbour, the Right Honourable Member for Cheltenham, is clearly going to have a lot to do in justice, but I still hope that he will look closely at family law reform to keep cases involving children out of the court system. And while I was not expecting new childcare announcements, I urge all of the government to get behind the Chancellor's investment in families by urgently boosting the early years workforce. Now, His Majesty the King said the government will lead on action to tackle biodiversity loss. Prime Minister, with COP28 approaching, this means that you should get familiar with WWT Slimbridge's flamingos in my patch. I will take all the help I can get to get a dedicated domestic wetlands team and wetland strategy in DEFRA. And if not persuaded, flamingos are absolutely marvellous for that wonderful Instagram account that you have. The King is also WWT's president, and wetlands can genuinely help reach our net zero targets.
Yeah.
So I said earlier that public service was a privilege, and I genuinely meant that. It gives us the chance to change things for everyday families and champion those who deserve or need our support. It also allows the hardest working Prime Minister I have known, and I've known quite a few recently. At one point, my baby was 3 months old. I think she'd met three Prime Ministers at the same time. But he shows the country week in and week out how we can bring long-term change against global headwinds. And I second this loyal address to the House.
Yeah.